I was kicked out of my house on Christmas Eve by my own mother. She did it with the kind of casual cruelty that can only come from someone who's been saving it up like a Christmas bonus. There was no yelling, no drama, just a dry, "You should probably go, you've done enough." Like I was a house guest who overstayed their welcome, not the daughter who just finished changing her adult diapers. 12 years, that's how long I took care of her. After her second stroke, she couldn't walk without help. Guess who moved in, cleaned her up, cooked 3 meals a day, dealt with her tantrums, her racism, her collection of expired pain meds, hidden like candy? Not my brother, he couldn't be bothered to cut his weekend golf short. Not my sister either. She was too busy focusing on her healing in Costa Rica, paid for by the same trust fund my mother swore didn't exist. It was me, always me. Every Mother's Day, my mom would fawn over them on Facebook, posting throwback pics of their smiling faces, writing captions like "so proud of my babies." Meanwhile, I was the one spoon feeding her soup and unclogging her toilet. I was the one who didn't get an invite to my own niece's baptism because you just make it about you. You want to know what I got last year for my birthday? A voicemail. She sang "Happy Birthday" like she was doing a parody of herself, and then hung up without a word. And I still made her dinner that night. Salmon and lemon rice, her favorite. I didn't eat with her. I just did the dishes and went to bed. I was raised on the gospel of duty, that if you love someone, you prove it in silence. You don't ask for thanks. You just keep giving even when it breaks you. And I broke, quietly, over and over. The final straw wasn't even a bang. It was a whimper. I found her will. I wasn't snooping. I was organizing her files, trying to prepare things in case she had another fall. It was in a red folder labeled "Final Wishes." Inside was a typed letter, signed and notarized, that read, "Leave nothing to outsiders." Outsiders. She meant me. She left everything to my brother and sister, the house, the money. The jewelry I cleaned weekly with an old toothbrush, the antique vanity I once spilled nail polish on and spent all night refinishing so she wouldn't notice. I wasn't even mentioned by name. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there holding that red folder like it was radioactive. I walked out to the porch where she was watching her crime shows, and I said, "Did you mean this?" She looked at me like I'd asked her if the sky was blue. "You're not blood. I was adopted." At 2, she used to call me her angel baby. Said I saved her from grief when Dad died. But now, you're not blood. I packed a bag, 1 suitcase, left the rest, and she didn't stop me. Didn't ask where I was going. Didn't call. I sat in my car for 2 hours in the driveway, watching the frost bloom on the windshield, trying to remember the last time I felt like her daughter. I couldn't. That realization hit harder than the will ever did. I drove to a motel, spent Christmas Eve eating vending machine Doritos and watching It's a Wonderful Life Alone, wrapped in a thin, floral comforter that smelled like bleach and loss. And that was my low, but not my end. The weeks that followed were a blur of quiet unraveling. I stayed in that motel for 3 days. Didn't answer texts though. To be fair, there were only 2. One was a mass Merry Christmas message from my sister, complete with a sun-kissed photo of her drinking mimosas in a bikini next to a man bun who I assumed was her latest healer boyfriend. The other was from my brother's wife, "Hope you're okay. We heard you left. LMK if you need anything." She didn't mean it. That woman once told me I should learn boundaries after I drove our mom to her colonoscopy because my brother had a tea time. The only reason she messaged me was probably guilt or optics. I didn't reply. I moved in with a friend from work, Gina, who offered me her spare room without asking questions. She didn't press when I walked in with tear-streaked cheeks and a box of adult diapers I forgot to leave behind. She just handed me a key and said, "Your room's at the end of the hall, clean sheets. Bathroom's yours after 9. That was the first act of real kindness I'd felt in years. No strings, no guilt, no unpaid emotional invoice hanging in the air. It took me a week to stop waking up at 6. OM like clockwork, instinctively reaching for my mother's pill organizer. My body still moved out of habit. I'd hear her voice in my head, "Where's my toast?" and jolt up in a panic before realizing I was free. Then I'd lie back down and cry because I didn't know what to do with that freedom. People talk about toxic relationships like they're fire, you get burned and you run. But what they don't tell you is that sometimes it's more like mold. You don't even realize how sick you've gotten until you're somewhere clean and can finally breathe again. I didn't visit. I didn't call. After 2 weeks of silence, my sister broke the seal. She left a voicemail with the tone of someone talking through clenched teeth. It's really unfair what you did. Mom's been crying. She says you abandoned her. We're trying to pick up the pieces, but it's hard with you just disappearing like that. Abandoned her? I wanted to laugh. 12 years of unpaid labor, and now I was the one who abandoned her? I didn't respond. The next day, my brother sent a message. This isn't the way to handle things. Come talk it out. Talk it out. Like it was a lover's quarrel and not a decades-long campaign of gaslighting, emotional starvation, and calculated erasure. I deleted the messages, blocked their numbers. A week after that, Gina said someone had left a letter taped to her front door. It was from my mom. No return address. Just my name in that sharp, looping cursive I used to envy in middle school. I opened it while sitting on the floor with a bowl of cereal, hands shaking, stomach already bracing for impact. It was a list. Literally. A bullet point list of all the things she had done for me since adopting me, gave you a home, paid for your braces, let you stay rent-free even when you had a job, took you in when your engagement failed, never put you in foster care. I stared at that last one for a long time. Never put you in foster care. Like that was the bar. No apology. No acknowledgement of what I did for her. Not even a hint of remorse. Just a grocery list of reasons you owe me forever. Gina asked if I wanted to burn it. I told her no. I folded it neatly and slid it into the back of my journal. Not because I wanted to keep it, but because it proved something. She didn't see me as a daughter. She saw me as debt. The silence on my end became a vacuum they couldn't ignore. My sister started texting me long paragraphs filled with spiritual jargon. Mom's not perfect, but she's doing her best. You can't hold on to pain like this. It's bad for your chakras. My brother tried the guilt approach. She's sick. If she dies, will you feel good about this? And the coup de grace. I found out they'd started telling the extended family that I was mentally unwell and ran off because she couldn't handle the pressure. One cousin even messaged me with a thinking of you during this difficult time text, which I only realized was sarcasm after I saw her tag my sister in a meme about drama queens. But the real kicker? My mom started calling Gina's office line. She left voicemails pretending to be a frail old woman who had been left all alone by the girl she raised as her own. She said she needed help. Said I must be too broken to know better. Gina told me I should file a harassment report. I said no, not yet. Instead, I began to build walls not just against them, but around myself. I changed my number, closed my old email, opened a new bank account, went through therapy for the first time in years, and slowly, I started keeping receipts. Literal and figurative. I made a list of every expense I'd paid for over the last 12 years, every prescription I picked up, every utility bill in my name, every ER visit, every box of adult diapers, every Uber, every bag of groceries. I didn't know why I was doing it at first. It just felt like taking inventory of a war one hadn't realized I'd survived. Gina introduced me to her cousin, an estate attorney. I wasn't ready to talk about the will, but I kept his card. And then the rumors stopped. My brother's wife posted a photo of their new patio set and tagged it #GratefulLife. My sister posted a long caption about forgiveness and letting go of those who vibrate at lower frequencies. I guess blocking me was easier than facing themselves. But the silence wasn't peace. Not yet. Because a part of me still burned. Not with rage. That's too hot, too quick. What I felt was colder. A slow, deliberate freeze. A hardening of all the places I used to keep soft for them. And when the cold settles long enough, it stops being pain. It becomes clarity. I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. And neither were they. I wasn't planning revenge. Not at first. For months, I just focused on breathing, on doing things like taking walks without checking the time, learning to cook for one, and sitting in silence without that panicked feeling that I was forgetting something. But healing, as it turns out, makes space. And in that space, new things creep in like questions, like anger that finally finds its voice. It started with a letter from the bank. I'd been forwarding mail from my old address to Gina's, just in case anything important slipped through. One morning, while sipping my coffee in her kitchen, I opened a thick envelope from First Heritage Credit Union. Inside was a detailed statement from a shared account, shared, with my mother's name and mine. I stared at the numbers, my breath catching. There were transactions I didn't recognize, withdrawals in the thousands, recurring transfers, spa charges, boutique stores I never stepped foot in. Then I saw my sister's name on a memo line, Venmo'd from the shared account, and then my brother's business name, loan repayment, family help, tens of thousands of dollars, taken from an account that, legally, I co-owned. I didn't know whether to scream or laugh. For 12 years, she told me she was barely making it, that I had to stretch every dollar, clip coupons, and sacrifice like real family does. Meanwhile, she was playing financier for the Golden Children, all while writing me out of her will. I called the bank. The account had been open when I first moved back in to take care of her. She'd asked me to sign just in case something happened, and I, ever the obedient daughter, didn't question her. And now, because my name was on it, I was legally responsible for the taxes on the account. I had to claim every cent, even the ones I never touched. I hung up the phone in shaking silence. Then I picked it back up and dialed that estate attorney, Gina's cousin, whose card I'd kept taped to the back of my mirror. His name was Patrick. He listened to everything, didn't interrupt, just asked for documents. "Oh," he said, when I emailed him scans of the will, the bank records, and my expense spreadsheet. "This is a mess, but a winnable one." The next few weeks were a blur of paperwork. Patrick called it building a narrative. I called it finally being seen. Every receipt, every calendar note, every prescription refill was a brick in the case I didn't know I'd been preparing all those years. And then something wild happened. I found the deed. It wasn't hidden. It was just buried in a box of old taxes and insurance forms my mom kept in her bedroom closet. I'd packed that box myself when I left, more out of habit than spite. The house? It was in my name, transferred 5 years ago, quietly, while she was in the hospital recovering from a fall. She must have done it thinking it was temporary, maybe as some backhanded insurance policy. But legally, it was mine. My hands shook as I held that paper. I laughed, alone in the room, a sound that came out brittle and wild. I owned the house I was kicked out of, the one she'd left to my brother in the will, the one she told everyone I was too unstable to manage. Patrick nearly choked when I told him. "Do you want to keep it?" he asked. I thought of that hallway where I used to sit with my knees pulled to my chest while she screamed that I was ungrateful. The kitchen where I'd made her soup and cried into the sink. The bathroom where I scrubbed floors with bleach and shame. "No," I said. "I want them to see the eviction notice." We filed suit quietly. It wasn't just about the house. It was elder abuse, financial exploitation, emotional labor theft. Patrick packaged it neatly, legally, devastatingly. He used the will, the bank records, the texts, the photos, my journals. He even subpoenaed the credit card logs. Turns out my mother had been funneling money through me to both of them for years. They were playing house with my unpaid wages. My brother's business? Funded by loans from mom that came out of the shared account I'd co-managed. My sister's healing retreats? Paid for with money taken the week I skipped my own birthday dinner to drive my mom to urgent care. Poetic, really. I didn't tell them. Not yet. Let them enjoy their fantasy. The one where I was gone, broken, irrelevant. But karma doesn't knock. It serves court summons. The day they got theirs, I got a text from my brother. "What the hell are you doing?" I didn't answer. Then my sister called. I let it ring out. She left a voicemail, voice trembling with fury and fear. "This is going to destroy the family." And there it was. That word again. Family. A word that was always used like a leash around my throat. Something I owed them. Something I had to earn. Again and again. I finally said it out loud just to hear the truth in it. "You destroyed it years ago. I'm just cleaning up the mess." The next week was chaos. My mom called the attorney's office directly, demanding I drop this nonsense. Patrick told her politely but firmly that all communication would now go through legal channels. She had left me a voicemail, just sobbing, not words, just her crying into the phone. I saved it, not out of guilt, out of documentation. The moment you realize you're not a daughter, but a scapegoat, is the moment everything changes. I wasn't playing nice anymore. This wasn't vengeance. It was reckoning. The court date was set for May, But the unraveling started long before that. I didn't show up at the house. I didn't serve the papers myself. That part was handled by a uniformed sheriff who knocked politely, handed my mother the documents, and told her she had 30 days to vacate the premises. The house she tried to write me out of. She called me within the hour block number, of course. I let it go to voicemail. Again, this time she didn't cry. She screamed, "You heartless little bitch. After everything I did for you, this is how you repay me? I took you in when no one else wanted you. I made you someone." I listened to that voicemail 3 times. Then I sent it to Patrick, labeled Exhibit G. My brother and sister went quiet for a few days. I assumed they were circling wagons, calling lawyers, trying to figure out how the girl they'd written off as pathetic and disposable was suddenly playing chess, while they were still spinning in circles. On day 5, my brother posted a GoFundMe, titled, "Help Save Our Family Home from Predatory Lawsuit." The bio, "A masterpiece of selective memory. Our mother is being targeted by someone she raised with love. Now she's being forced from her home due to a legal technicality." He called me a distant relative, claimed I was exploiting an old woman's generosity. They attached a picture of Mom in a wheelchair she didn't even need, looking pitiful, clutching rosary beads she hadn't touched since Reagan was in office. They raised $732 in 48 hours, mostly from church ladies and high school acquaintances who still believed my mom was the kind of woman who baked pies and sent birthday cards. Then someone I still don't know who leaked the court documents. Maybe a board clerk, maybe one of my cousins who figured out the truth, doesn't matter. Because once that happened, the story blew up. Local Facebook groups shared it, Reddit got a hold of it, TikTok moms made dramatic reenactments. Someone even tagged me in a tweet. "This woman took care of her mother for 12 years, only to be cut out of the will. Now she's getting her justice." It was surreal. People started calling me a hero. Me. The invisible daughter. The ghost in the photos. And that's when the family fell apart. My sister deleted all her social media within a day. My brother tried to backpedal on the GoFundMe, posting a follow-up. There's been some confusion. Legal proceedings are underway and we can't comment. Comments were disabled within the hour. My mother, well, she started leaving voicemails again. Not angry ones. Pathetic ones. Croaky voiced messages about how she didn't know the house was in my name. That she never meant for me to feel unloved. That no family is perfect. She said she was scared. Alone. That the media attention was ruining her reputation. I recorded every one. Sent them all to Patrick. They weren't apologies. They were warnings in disguise. Look what you're doing to me. Like I'd set a fire. Instead of just letting the match burn out on its own. 30 days passed. They didn't leave. So Patrick filed for formal eviction. The sheriff came again. This time with movers. My brother showed up, furious, pacing the lawn like he was ready to punch someone. I watched from my car across the street, sunglasses on, windows up, just a quiet spectator to the meltdown. They swore I'd never cause. Mom refused to come out at first, claimed her blood pressure was too high. The EMTs checked her. She was fine. Eventually, she walked out with a cane she didn't need and a glare that could have turned concrete to ash. She looked directly at my car. Maybe she sensed I was there. Maybe she just needed an audience. I didn't flinch. The movers boxed up her things. Most of it was junk-hoarded magazines, expired makeup, gaudy jewelry from Home Shopping Network. But she screamed when they touched the vanity. The one I'd refinished after she spilled wine on it and blamed me. She wailed like a child, called them thieves, begged them to leave it. I let them take it. I let them take everything. By nightfall, the house was mine. But I didn't go inside. Not that day. Instead, I drove to a quiet park and sat on a bench with a hot tea. Let the wind tangle my hair. Watched the ducks. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilt clawing at my ribs. The next morning, I walked into the house with a locksmith and a trash bag. It smelled like cheap candles and dust. I walked room by room. Didn't cry, didn't linger. I boxed up a few photo albums, mostly of me. There weren't many. I found my baby blanket stuffed in a drawer. Torn, forgotten, I threw it away. The court case wasn't over. We still had hearings ahead, financial records to examine, damages to assess. But the house was settled. The silence was mine now. That week, Patrick got a letter from their attorney, some low-level family friend trying to make the mess look tidy. They offered a settlement, half the estate. If I'd just let it go, I told Patrick to respond with one line, "My client doesn't negotiate with thieves." They pushed back, begged, threatened to go public. I told them they were welcome to try. I had receipts. And now, so did the internet. I got cards from strangers, messages from women who said my story gave them courage, emails from nurses, caregivers, daughters who said, "I thought I was the only one." I wasn't alone. I'd never been alone. I was just raised to think I had to be. And that was their biggest mistake. They taught me to carry everything in silence. But silence, weaponized, becomes power. And now it was mine. 6 months later, the house is unrecognizable. The cigarette yellow curtains are gone. I replaced them with linen ones that let in the light. The floral wallpaper my mother clung to like some holy relic, ripped down. I painted the walls white, not sterile white, bright, warm, defiant white. The antique vanity sold. The money went toward the deposit for my business license. Yes, my business. It's not big, not yet, but I turned the downstairs den, the one where my mother used to scream at me for wasting electricity, into a consulting office. I help women like me, caregivers, estranged daughters, the scapegoats, who were never invited to be anything more than footnotes in their own families, navigate legal options. I connect them with lawyers, therapists, housing resources. Sometimes I just sit and listen while they cry, because someone should. And now I can. The court case is over. Patrick called it one for the books. We settled in my favor. I didn't just keep the house. I won compensation for over a decade of unpaid caregiving, reimbursed for shared account theft, and received a court-issued apology letter from my mother's estate for emotional injury and financial exploitation. That letter, framed, hangs above the toilet. A reminder, not of pain, but of survival. My sister moved back to Costa Rica. Apparently, her vibration couldn't handle the American legal system. My brother filed for bankruptcy a month after the judgment. His business folded. His wife left. I heard she took the patio furniture. Mom? She's in a nursing facility. State-run, not one of the nice ones. She qualified for Medicaid. My lawyer advised me not to visit, not to engage. And for once, I listened. She wrote me letters. At first, one a week, then once a month. The first few were pure venom claims. I'd twisted the narrative, that I'd let outsiders poison me. Then came the pleas. "I'm sorry you feel that way." The non-apology apology. My favorite genre. Then silence. I didn't respond to a single one, but I kept them. Every single envelope, tied with a ribbon. I'm not sure why. Maybe because throwing them away would mean they still had power. Keeping them, untouched, is my way of saying, I don't need you anymore, but I'm not pretending you didn't happen. Grief still visits sometimes. Not for her, but for the version of me that kept trying. For the girl who made soup and swallowed resentment. For the woman who thought love meant sacrificing yourself at the altar of other people's comfort. But those days are rare now. Mostly I wake up to birdsong and clean air. I have clients, I have friends, I have a life that doesn't feel like a cage wrapped in obligation. Gina and I still have dinner every Tuesday. Sometimes we just sit in silence, sharing a bottle of red, letting our shoulders drop from years of armor. Last month, she brought me a gift, a plaque. It says, "You don't owe anyone the rest of your life just because they gave you the beginning." It's on my office desk. Some days, I still catch myself flinching when the phone rings. Trauma doesn't vanish just because justice showed up, but it fades. And in its place, clarity and the smallest, fiercest thing of all, peace. The kind of peace that doesn't ask for permission. The kind that doesn't beg to be loved. Last week, a cousin I barely speak to messaged me out of the blue. "I heard what happened. I'm so sorry. I had no idea it was that bad." I didn't reply. Some stories don't need witnesses to be real. Some stories just need to end. So I sit in this house, this quiet, sunlit house with the walls I chose and the life I built from scraps they thought were worthless. And I breathe. No guilt. No shame. No mother's voice echoing down the hallway. Just me. And that, finally, is enough. They said I was heartless, but for once, I put my heart first. And it finally beat for me. Story 2. Since his sister detested me and manipulated everyone against me, I surreptitiously left my boyfriend's apartment when he was working out in the morning at the gym. Tomorrow at 31 a.m., I'm leaving Mike at 26 a.m. I've had enough of stealing from his family. He won't do anything to at least defend me, though. I'm trying to figure out if I'm doing things correctly or if I'm just being a huge bit hat about everything. To put things in perspective, we have been living together for more than a year and dating for around 3 years. After spilling his drink on me at a friend's birthday celebration, he insisted on purchasing me another one as an act of contrition. We clicked immediately because he was kind and humorous. Before his family began to reveal their actual selves, and he made it clear to me where I rank in his priorities, I always believed that we were a good match. Because of her strong nature, his sister is used to ruin her own marriages in any manner imaginable. Her name will be Darla F. 37. She has a learned characteristic, is quite vocal, and is eloquent. She had the option to work outside the home, but instead she stayed at home with her children, arguing with her ex about child support and insulting others with her sassy words. With her, every family get-together is like navigating a minefield. One wrong phrase, and you're out for the rest of your life. She uses her 2 children, both under 10, as an excuse for everything. She claims that she can't work, clean her house, or be on time because of the children. Nevertheless, she finds time to start arguments with strangers online and create drama on Facebook. She never identifies the people she is referring to, but she is always tweeting cryptic comments about phony people and understanding who your true friends are. Despite complaining about her lack of money, she rejects job offers that are presented to her. I've witnessed people genuinely offer her jobs, but she always finds a reason why they can't be accepted. For example, Mike's uncle once offered her a flexible schedule and decent compensation as a receptionist at his dentist clinic, but she declined since she doesn't do well in medical settings, whatever that may be. She doesn't respect other people's opinions, so you can't say anything without fearing that she'll interpret it as being about you. She is the kind of person who makes everything about her. She will say that she hasn't slept for days because of her children if someone remarks that they're exhausted. For instance, when her ex left her some time ago, she experienced a serious dilemma. She was set off, and her emotions fluctuated between anger and sadness. It was really a little frightening to witness at points within the same talk. Nobody understood how to address her without making her angry. One minute she would be crying over how much she missed him, and the next she would be yelling about what a jerk he was and how she would never see him again. Around her, the entire family was being cautious. She arrived at this particular supper already in a certain mood, as I recall. Darla complained that the food was too hot, but Mike's mother had prepared a large supper and invited everyone to attempt to lift her spirits. The fact that everyone was gazing at her and the music was hardly audible wasn't the reason she was having a headache. No one was. Darla started crying and said that everyone was making fun of her ex after Mike's father made a joke about the neighbor's new automobile being compensation for something. It was draining. They were considering putting her to a mental health facility, so their mother asked me for guidance on what to do, but Darla refused. I suggested that she could benefit from a diversion to lessen her suffering. Perhaps taking a part-time job would help her reconnect with herself, and if she enjoyed it, distract her from the situation. I believed I was being beneficial. At the moment, the entire family was unsure of what to do and frightened for her. His mother seems to value my advice. "That's not a bad idea," she remarked, nodding. "Something that will allow her to leave the house." We even discussed particular locations that could be recruiting. In fact, I believed that his mother and I were becoming closer because we had similar worries about Darla. A few days later, Darla declared me to be her enemy, claiming that I had insulted her and hinted that she was insane, and that her unemployment was the cause of her mental collapse. When Mike came to talk to me about it, he said those things. She began telling everyone in the family that I believed her to be unstable and sluggish. She totally misrepresented what I said. I should not speak to their younger brother, she also determined. I lost Tim, 30, and we both turned against her. In the same week, we became pals. Because his sister detested me and pushed everyone against me, Tim moved out of my boyfriend's apartment in secret while he was working out in the gym in the morning. Tomorrow, I am F26, departing from Mike and 31. I've had enough of stealing from his family. He won't do anything to at least defend me, though. I'm trying to figure out if I'm doing things correctly or if I'm just being a huge bit het about everything. To put things in perspective, we have been living together for more than a year and dating for around 3 years. After spilling his drink on me at a friend's birthday celebration, he insisted on purchasing me another one as an act of contrition. We clicked immediately because he was kind and humorous before his family began to reveal their actual selves, and he made it clear to me where I rank in his priorities. I always believed that we were a good match. Because of her strong nature, his sister is used to ruin her own marriages in any manner imaginable. Her name will be Darla F. 37. She has a learned characteristic, is quite vocal, and is eloquent. She had the option of working outside the home, but she chose to be a stay-at-home mother instead. No employment, arguing with her ex about child support, and insulting others with her sassy tongue. With her, every family get-together is like navigating a minefield. One wrong phrase, and you're out for the rest of your life. She uses her 2 children, both under 10, as an excuse for everything. She claims that she is unable to work, maintain her home, or arrive on time because of the children. Nevertheless, she finds time to start arguments with strangers online and create drama on Facebook. She never identifies the people she is referring to, but she is always tweeting cryptic comments about phony people and understanding who your true friends are. Despite complaining about her lack of money, she rejects job offers that are presented to her. I've witnessed people genuinely offer her jobs, but she always finds a reason why they can't be accepted. For example, Mike's uncle previously offered her a flexible schedule and decent compensation as a receptionist at his dentist practice, but she declined since she struggles in medical settings. Whatever it implies, she doesn't respect other people's opinions, so you can't say anything without fearing that she'll interpret it as being about you. She is the kind of person who makes everything about her. She will say that she hasn't slept for days because of her children if someone remarks that they're exhausted. For instance, when her ex left her some time ago, she experienced a serious dilemma. She was set off, and her emotions fluctuated between anger and sadness. It was really a little frightening to witness at points within the same talk. Nobody understood how to address her without making her angry. One minute she would be crying over how much she missed him, and the next she would be yelling about what a jerk he was and how she would never see him again. Around her, the entire family was being cautious. She arrived at this particular supper already in a certain mood, as I recall. Darla complained that the food was too hot, but Mike's mother had prepared a large supper and invited everyone to attempt to lift her spirits. She wasn't experiencing a headache from the music. Everyone was gazing at her, and it was hardly audible. No one was. Darla started crying and said that everyone was making fun of her ex after Mike's father made a joke about the neighbor's new automobile being compensation for something. It was draining. They were considering putting her to a mental health facility, so their mother asked me for guidance on what to do, but Darla refused. I suggested that she could benefit from a diversion to lessen her suffering. Perhaps taking a part-time job would help her reconnect with herself, and, if she enjoyed it, distract her from the situation. I believed I was being beneficial. At the moment, the entire family was unsure of what to do and frightened for her. His mother seems to value my advice. That's not a bad idea, she remarked, nodding. Something that will allow her to leave the house. We even discussed particular locations that could be recruiting. In fact, I believe that his mother and I were becoming closer because we had similar worries about Darla. A few days later, Darla declared me to be her enemy, claiming that I had insulted her and hinted that she was insane and that her unemployment was the cause of her mental collapse. When Mike came to talk to me about it, he said those things. She began telling everyone in the family that I believed her to be unstable and sluggish. She totally misrepresented what I said. She also made the decision that I shouldn't speak to their 30-year-old youngest brother, Tim. And I lost him, as well as becoming her enemy. In the same week, we became pals. In reality, Tim and I had a close friendship. He is the most typical member of the family, and we could discuss arbitrary topics for hours on end. I also had a terrific relationship with his wife, Sarah. Sometimes we would go shopping together and send each other memes. He virtually always included his wife in our conversations as well. We would get together for cocktails or invite them over for supper. Mike tells me that Tim and I shouldn't chat too much since it was strange, even though it wasn't strange or wrong. What on earth does that mean? I felt ashamed of the entire situation, and as like I had done something immoral, even though I hadn't. I recall asking Mike explicitly, "Do you think that Tim and I are having an inappropriate relationship?" He even dared to remark, "Well, you two are awfully close," as if it were illegal to be friends with your boyfriend's brother. When I pointed out that Sarah was also frequently present, he simply shrugged and remarked, "Darla finds it strange, and I kind of agree." Tim stopped answering my texts after that. On Instagram, Sarah unfollowed me. It was quite painful, especially because I believed that we were true friends. Later, I discovered that Darla had told them lies about their marriage behind their backs, but they believed her since I'm just the girlfriend, and she's family. Mike instructed me to apologize to Darla and backed her. For what purpose? For providing his mother with the counsel she requested. He said that his sister was going through a difficult period and that I didn't comprehend family relations. Yes, not a state. Everyone knew that. However, it seems that the answer was to avoid her at all costs and never make any suggestions that may better her circumstances. When Mike's mother asked for my opinion, I attempted to convey to him how unjust this was and that I was only attempting to be helpful. "You don't understand," he said. "Darla's sensitivity has always been present. You ought to have realized that she needed to go to work. As like offering a job as a diversion was some kind of horrible affront." He continued saying stuff like, "You have to understand how our family works. And that's just how Darla is." He seemed to assume that since that's how their family operates, I would just put up with being treated like trash. The fact that Mike never defends me is the worst. Not once. He simply stood by and let Darla disseminate lies about me to the other members of the family. He said that when their mother began to treat me differently, and I was not invited to family gatherings, I was only dreaming. He thought I was being theatrical and left me alone. We were meant to attend his cousin's wedding together, I recall. Along with everything else, I purchased a new outfit. Then, 2 days prior, Mike suggests that since Darla is still furious and doesn't want any drama during the wedding, it may be best if I didn't go. Like, it's my job to make things dramatic. He replied that he was still going when I inquired. It's his cousin, of course. At 3 in the morning, he returned home intoxicated after going out without me and posting many photos of himself having a blast with his family, chatting about how much fun it was. I felt wounded and alienated. I once spent hours assisting his mom in the kitchen at Thanksgiving, and when we came down to eat, Darla revealed that she had reserved the seat next to their mom for Tim's wife. The chair I was going to take, I was forced to sit next to a distant relative I had never met at the end of the table. Mike remained silent and simply watched everything unfold. I'm tired of dealing with Mike's rudeness whenever he comes to see his relatives. Our most recent heated disagreement occurred after he returned and accused me of being controlling since I had advised him to cut back on his alcohol use because he becomes aggressive, has said cruel things, and is a liar. That night was especially awful when I requested him to leave me alone, since I was feeling unwell from worry, and my arrhythmia was triggered during a heated dispute. I wasn't invited to the family meal he attended at his parents' place. Unbelievably, he arrived home intoxicated, staggering through the door at midnight. When I heard him knock down the lamp in the living room, I got out of bed even though I was already in bed. He went on a diatribe about how I'm constantly watching him and trying to regulate his drinking. When I questioned if he was safe to drive, he is aware of my cardiac condition. Since I was a teenager, I've had it. Although stress and worry might set off episodes, medicine typically keeps it under control. He was shouting at me that night. My heart was beginning to quiver and race. He accused me of pretending to be ill in order to end the conversation when I informed him I wanted to sit down and that I wasn't feeling well. I mean, I'm really playing with my own heartbeat. That's a talent I acquired. He hammered on the door, urging me to stop being so theatrical, and I ended myself locked in the bathroom, taking my emergency prescription and attempting to relax. He had fainted on the couch when I eventually emerged. He said I was overstating how horrible it was, and that he hardly remembered any of it the next morning. It's been more than a year since we moved in together. Even though I don't have many goods with me, I paid half of everything, including the whole cost of food and the energy bill. I even purchased the TV and couch that we use. When the shower began to leak, I paid to have the bathroom tiled again. I purchased new drapes for the bedroom and living room. When the old microwave died, I got a new one instead. Regardless of my contributions, I was not given the same treatment. And his mother informed me directly that her kid knows what his top priorities are, regardless of who or what occurs. I finally had enough and left him after this. It was at his mother's house when he spoke with her. Mike's mom cornered me in the kitchen while he and his dad went out to the garage to look at something related to cars. When she first asked how things were doing at my employment, she was really kind, whether Mike and I were having a good time. You know, Mike's always been very family-oriented, she replies abruptly. His priorities are obvious. The manner in which she spoke, staring directly into my eyes. What she meant was clear. He would never prioritize me, nor over Darla, nor over his family. For the past 2 months or so, I have been sleeping in the guest room. He believes it's because of my snoring or some nonsense justification I offered him. I explained to him that I needed better sleep because I was going through a difficult period at work. In all honesty, I was sick of the idea of his touching me. He has repeatedly attempted to corner me in the kitchen or enter the room late at night in an attempt to start a sexual encounter. I'm courteous to him, but I've already lost the desire to keep our relationship going. My mind feels as though a switch has been flicked. A few weeks back, he approached me from behind and began kissing my neck as I was in the kitchen brewing tea. I had no feelings at all. In fact, it's worse than nothing. I was disgusted. I returned to the guest room after making up an explanation about having cramps. As if it were the only reason I wouldn't want to sleep with him, he became very huffy about it, stating that I never want to be intimate again, and questioning if I was cheating on him. In a sense, the guest room has turned into my haven. I transferred my laptop, books, and the most of my clothing inside. When I'm at home, I spend the most of my time there. He has frequently grumbled about it, claiming that we are more like roommates than lovers. However, he never inquires as to why I could be retreating. He never thinks about how his behavior and how his family treats me may be the issue. Although I'm sad, I'm eager for this to be over. After he leaves for his morning workout, I will move out of the new place I found. I am certain that I will have at least 2 hours because he is quite devoted to his gym time. He leaves at 7 a.m. every day and returns at 9:30 a.m. Everything that I keep at his apartment fits in my car, and I have already taken out my paperwork and other vital items. In the absence of him, I've been gradually removing items. A month or so ago, I began my search for a new residence. I told myself that I was only interested in the market when I initially started looking through postings. However, I then discovered this tiny one-bedroom apartment close to my place of employment. I received the keys 3 days ago and signed the lease last week. I never imagined this would happen, and I'm a little worried, but I intend to tell him once I'm gone. I'm not attempting to defend him, but I'm aware that it will be a blow to his ego, and I don't want to set off his emotional instability. I bring this up because I've witnessed his reactions when his buddies ignore him. He's the kind of person who absolutely cannot cope with rejection. I recall that when Mike got too wasted at Jake's birthday and made advances on Jake's fiancée, his pal Jake stopped responding to his texts. Mike drove by Jake's place to see if his car was there and was often checking to see if Jake had seen his messages since he was so preoccupied with finding out why Jake was ignoring him. To be honest, it was a little unnerving. In addition, he had weeks of depression after being cut off by his college closest buddy. They had been buddies since their first year, and it seems that the man has had enough of Mike's drinking and turmoil. Mike was a bit alarmed since he stopped eating and spent all of his free time in bed after another buddy. He was planning to try to launch a business with ended things. His mother had to come over and essentially make him get out of bed after he hadn't had a shower for about 4 days. I don't want to be the cause of his downward spiral, but I also can't continue to remain in this relationship. In fact, the commercial aspect was quite concerning. The fact that Mike and this guy, Chris, were planning to launch a home remodeling company together should have caught my attention more. Chris possessed the knowledge and expertise. Mike had saved up some cash. For months, they were in the planning stages, discussing company names and examining vehicles to purchase. Chris abruptly backed out after that. Mike explained that it was because Chris received a better offer from another firm, but I subsequently learned from a mutual acquaintance that Chris became fed up with Mike's constant changing of plans, tardiness at meetings, and failure to fulfill commitments. Nothing that could be said to improve our connection, in my opinion. I don't think I can go past the way his family treated me and the way he allowed it to happen because too much has transpired. There is no longer any trust. The affection has vanished. All that remains is this pointless pattern that we both follow. Edit. I appreciate all of your remarks. Although I appreciate the advice, some of you are pretty nasty, lol. When it's finished tomorrow, I'll provide an update. And to the one who inquired, we're not married. No, I'm grateful. No, I'm also not pregnant. Jesus. You're not understanding either if you're suggesting that I should just speak with him. I have made several attempts to speak with him. I've attempted to articulate my feelings toward his family. I've attempted to express my hurt when he fails to defend me. He either says he will do better or brushes off my sentiments. After then, nothing alters. I'm sick and weary of the same old talk. Update. I suppose many folks requested that I provide an update, so let's get started. I apologize for the delay in posting this. Much has happened. I was surprised to see more than 60 comments on my initial post. I'm shocked at how many people care about my pointless relationship issues, haha. First of all, I appreciate the guidance and pointers. As soon as I moved, I updated my mailing address. Some of you were correct that it was significant. I've already had some packages diverted. Along with updating my address, I also made sure to update my credit cards, bank, and other crucial accounts. I also made sure that all of my key paperwork were in one place: Social Security card, passport, and birth certificate. All of the information revealed that my passport had expired. However, that is an issue for a different time. I was so nervous the night before that I barely slept. I couldn't stop imagining that Mike would somehow figure out what I was doing or come home early. I believe I slept for a total of maybe 2 hours. Things became complex, but the original intention was to go in the morning. He entered my room last night in an attempt to start a sexual encounter. Fortunately, I had not yet packed anything, and I stored all of the unassembled boxes in my closet so he wouldn't see anything suspicious. The majority of my belongings were kept in that room, and I made a list of everything I needed to pack in my car from around his house. For weeks, I've been updating it anytime I think of something else I should take. Some of you watch too many crime programs, haha. For those of you who were really worried about trackers, to look for trackers, I brought my phone to the mall's IT booth. My automobile is no different. It was a relief that there was nothing. I think I was being overly cautious, but it's better to be careful than sorry, I suppose. When I requested the man at the IT booth to check for tracking software, he gave me a strange look, but he still performed it. Likely attracts a lot of paranoid individuals. Around his regular hour this morning, he set out for his workout. As soon as he left, I peered through the window to make sure his car really did move out of the parking lot. I started working. Even when you don't believe you have much, it's amazing how much stuff you can amass. I grabbed the remainder of my stuff and stowed the boxes in my luggage right away. In actuality, there was less material than I had anticipated. It's funny that everything I own fits in my terrible Honda after more than a year of living together. I couldn't fit everything at once, so I had to make 2 journeys. Fortunately, he adhered to his regular schedule, despite my anxiety that he might be home early and catch me on the second trip. Although the TV and couch are officially mine, I did leave them. I didn't want to give him a cause to make a claim, and it wasn't worth the trouble. Story 3. Before our wedding, I revealed my worst secret to my fiancé, and he disappeared for days. My folks then accused him of delaying our wedding until I had to make the admission over Thanksgiving. I haven't heard from him since this incident a week ago. I tried contacting him, messaging him, and visiting his sister's house and apartment. I am unable to locate him. I'm also hearing from everyone that they haven't heard from him. Everyone to lie to me, with the exception of his brother, who clearly did not receive the memo as everyone else did. In fact, he informed me that Greg, not his real name, does not wish to see or communicate with me. An overview of how we arrived at this point. At a religious event 3 years ago, we first met. Yes, I am aware that Reddit despises religion, but that's just the way it is. I actually don't talk to any males other than briefly, if I can get away with it, since I've had a really difficult existence with men. But I was listening to Greg talk to a crowd about a book I had recently finished reading. I listened to him while I stood there. The The gathering lingered for a while after he finished speaking, and I quizzed him on the book. He responded to each one, and my attraction to him grew as he spoke more. It may not seem like much, but this was the first time since high school that I had a genuine attraction to a man. A difficult event, as I mentioned. However, let's just say that I became associated with a really nasty crowd after graduating from high school. I started doing drugs, and when I was 19, my family booted me out after they had taken all they could. This is not their fault. I stole from them, by the way, to support my drug addiction. They made several attempts to assist me, but when I took a substantial amount of money from them and used it to purchase heroin, they were able to live comfortably and couch surf from friend home to friend house for almost 6 weeks. Still an addict, though, I was also caught stealing from them. Sincerely, I spent a few days living on a park bench during my 2 weeks of homelessness. I made the decision to begin stripping and all of its associated activities. Stated differently, I was doing private dances and parties, and sure, it soon evolved into merely getting paid for sex. Since I was either high or working to get high anytime I wasn't working, I honestly don't even recall much of that period of time. For a few years, I did this. I overdosed on my 23rd birthday. I had on several occasions, but not until I was no longer breathing. By performing cardiopulmonary resuscitation and bringing me to safety, the paramedics genuinely saved my life. During my 3 days on a ventilator in the intensive care unit, I experienced many seizures. A pastor visited me in the intensive care unit. He was only a pastor who visited patients and their families. He approached me and told me that there is a greater purpose to life. I won't bore you with the rest of what he said. Needless to say, I'm not sure if it was God, him, or my frustration with my life, but I was very impacted by it. I also requested them to assist me stop using all of the medications when I left the intensive care unit. It was successful. Since the day I departed, I have maintained my sobriety, and I have never once felt the need to return to that state. At first, it was difficult, but each day improved. I got a job. After I got back in touch with my family, I met Greg. Not even in high school had I experienced love. However, I fell deeply in love with him on our 1-year anniversary after only a few dates. With the understanding that the wedding would take place a year from now, he proposed to me. I gladly accepted, and I've never had a better time. Every day I could feel the warmth of his affection. After that, though, my parents and I began planning our wedding. I told them not to pay, but they still wanted to. And what did Greg know about my background one day when we were conversing? Did they have a purpose? Was he aware of the drugs? My parents are not quite aware of how far I've fallen. The medications were already terrible. My mother advised me to keep the fact that I had changed to myself a secret if Greg had never inquired. Furthermore, the past ought to remain in the past. But my dad stated something that, at the time, made real logic. Now, though I kind of regret listening to him, I was still a part of who I am, he added, despite the fact that I had altered. And concealing the past is actually the same as lying. Greg wouldn't give a damn about the past if he truly loved me. However, he might not be as understanding if he ever learned about it on his own or in another way, since he would think it was a deception. I decided to tell him everything last weekend. After gathering all the bravery I could, he is aware of something that my parents are unaware of, and I feel deeply deceived today. He assumed I was kidding at first, but when I told him I wasn't, he kind of fell silent. He went on to tell me that he valued the candor. He wanted time to reflect since he was unsure of his feelings. It's been a week since then. I simply texted him a few times to let him know that I still loved him, to check in with him, and to ask if he had any concerns. I let him go until Saturday. He never got back to me, and I haven't heard from him in a week. I'm at a loss on what to do. Since we first met, he has been my pillar of support. He has helped me get back up when I've been down, when I've been depressed. I've laughed because of him. I sincerely hope I haven't caused him any harm. That, in my opinion, would be the worst scenario. Although I am aware that my previous life was repulsive, it has been 6 years since I left it, and I was in a different city, in fact, a different state. Therefore, my former life cannot return to see me here. No one is going to look for me because I didn't form any ties or friendships throughout that period. Would someone kindly let me know what I may say or do to make him happy? I genuinely adore him and would stop at nothing to put things right. Edit, we're going to take a half-hour emotional respite. He replied he also needed it when I asked for it. We had spent the entire day conversing at my house. I won't tell lies. It hasn't been easy. I have shed more tears today than I have in my whole life. However, at his wish, we are no longer engaged, but we are still together and conversing. By the way, not all of the tears have been depressing ones. He has also been quite forthcoming about his history, and I found it heartwarming that he felt obliged to do so when he didn't have to. I'll attempt to provide a comprehensive report later tonight, but I'm not sure whether anyone is interested. However, I sincerely appreciate all of your encouraging remarks. You have no idea how much it has aided me. Update 1. I should have clarified the post title, because he did not ghost me. He did contact me, and we met for a few hours on Sunday. His family did not tell lies on his behalf, and he had no intention of ghosting me. In fact, his brother approached me and apologized for how he handled my phone call before we had opportunity to speak at church. He claimed that it was obvious to him that he did not share his brother's need for solitude. I took that to indicate that he was unwilling to speak with me. Since he went away for a week and instructed them to only call him in case of emergency, the rest of his family was unaware of any serious issues and was unaware of his whereabouts. They had no idea, but they obviously realized something was wrong. Miscommunication and, to be honest, my own impatience and anxiousness were the main causes of the ghosting. After apologizing for it, we both went on. In any case, we met in the church for the morning service. I arrived first and took our customary seat, and he arrived right before the service began. However, he approached and took a seat next to me, and as the service began, we exchanged a brief grin. On the inside, I was dying. People were conversing with trembling hands after the service. At this point, his brother approached me to apologize, but he slipped away and spoke to a few other individuals throughout our conversation. Whatever the case, I suspect this was prearranged. I nearly broke down when he asked how I was when he returned, but I managed to keep my composure and said that I was okay, even though I was clearly crying while we were speaking. If he was going to end our relationship, I wanted it to be over with so I could go home and begin the mourning process. That's why he asked if I wanted to discuss now or later. I just said, I'm ready. All I could think of was my apartment, so I didn't have to drive when it was all done. He said he really wanted to discuss somewhere private and asked where I would want to go. He indicated that he truly wanted this to be cordial when he stepped inside after following me home. Not encouraging. I was already a ton of anxiety by now. I suddenly blurted out, "Will you abandon me?" I'm obviously sobbing as I write this. I genuinely believed that this was a done deal, so his following words gave me a lot of optimism. He added that what I said to him that day and how much I could put up with from him will determine a lot of what happened in the future. I was so happy that he didn't answer yes that I practically fell into my chair and told him that I was willing to do whatever it required, even though that last part truly baffled me. He went on to say that if that were the case, he would ask for two things from me: patience and honesty. He began by expressing regret to me for not being a better man. When he said that, the floodgates opened, and it was all I could handle. I essentially dumped this amazing man after lying to him. One of the worst things you could ever say to a prospective spouse is probably something I can only envision from a man's perspective. He was also expressing regret to me. I had to give him a hug and urge him not to say sorry. I sobbed for a few minutes while he held me, but I eventually forced myself to listen to him. I had a terrible week, he said. He said that he had to confront many of his own biases, jealousies, and fears. He said that he discovered something about himself that he did not like. He was quite protective and had a jealous streak, but he was unaware of this until I told him my experience. He went into great detail about it, but I won't get into that since it was very personal and, well, this is already going to be a book. After that, he asked me whether I could put up with him, making some really personal remarks and asking some very pointed questions. He asked the following questions after I reiterated that I would stop at nothing to achieve my goal. Did I always wear protection? 2. Did I engage in any sexual activity with someone in the city where we currently reside? 3. How many individuals did I have sex with? And did I know? 4. Have I ever had a sexually transmitted illness test? If yes, when was it last? And did I document it? 5. Will one be subjected to repeated testing in the future? 6. Have I ever had sex with someone who wasn't a client? 7. What kinds of substances did I consume? 8. How recently have I used drugs? 9. Since this occurrence, do I have the urge or want to use drugs or any other substance? 10. How can I promise him that I won't use drugs again in the future? 11. Do I love having sex and does it have any true significance for me? Or am I simply doing it to stay near him now? 12. What was the amount of money I stole? 13. Have I returned the money? 14. Have I ever stolen cash or anything else that wasn't related to drugs? 15. How am I going to promise him that I would never take from him again? I answered all of his questions honestly, although it took me many hours since I had to pause frequently to gather my thoughts. He frequently apologized for asking and said that I didn't have to answer them if I didn't want to, but he stated that he had to know everything or he wouldn't be able to. After outlining his worries, he asked whether I was truly interested in working with him on them and that he would respect my decision if I wasn't. If I didn't want this, I wouldn't be here, I said. His worries were therefore as follows. He worries that I could take from him or his family in the future if things go difficult for whatever reason. Since this was the first topic he brought up, I must admit that I was taken aback because I did not anticipate this to be a problem. Now, his family does have a company, to be fair. Although they are not wealthy, they are also not impoverished. He must be anxious when he assumes control. I may be. He claims he doesn't know how strong he is, and that being with me will kill him because of his illogical worry that once an addict, always a junkie. I then retreated into that realm. Observe his anxiety that sex will become a problem in the future. He claimed that all week long he has been plagued by intrusive, terrible ideas. Nothing would ever be exceptional since I've dated so many people and experienced so many different things. And in the end, he was worried that he would get resentful because he would think we were only having sex for him, and that he would be far less inclined to have sex with me if he knew that I would only be taking part. I listened to him once more and addressed all of his concerns as best I could. He stated he had to talk about it even though he knew a lot of stuff was nothing I could ever truly promise. I informed him that I had anticipated some of this and that I understood. We went over this material for several hours, as I mentioned. In order to prevent our emotions from taking over, we had to take a few breaks. He truly experienced the spectrum of emotions on his own, but I realized that if I wanted this to succeed, I had to let him. He informed me that he truly loved me and that he was prepared to remain and try to make things work. My heart obviously leaped at this, and I started crying once again. Given everything I've gone through, you would think I'd be more resilient than this. However, he expressed his disapproval of the planned wedding and stated that, honestly, he would like to call it quits on our engagement and continue dating. Of course, exclusive for a while, he replied. In all honesty, he wanted to take the time to consider things from a different angle, even though he trusts in me and feels as though he knows me. The notion that you didn't truly know me enters the picture here. When I removed my ring to present it to him, he sobbed for the first time. He instructed me to put it back on and stated that he only wanted to delay the wedding rather than call off the engagement. I assured him that we could do anything he felt was necessary. We will simply inform people that we will be postponing the date due to scheduling conflicts and will notify them of a new date, he added. After that, we had to choose what to tell our families. He stated that he would explain to his family that he was under pressure at work and that he became agitated due to a miscommunication over time off. I assured him that I would say anything he desired. He advised me to keep my background private, with the exception of our clergyman, with whom we will begin couples counseling. Regarding my family, we both agreed to this. The one issue we had that day, however, arose at this point. He simply assumed that my family was aware. I informed him that they are only aware of drug use and theft. He stated that he believed my parents needed to be aware since they are footing the bill for the wedding and it will lead to issues with event cancellations and other things. Additionally, he didn't want people to believe that my past drug usage was the only reason for this. He claimed it wasn't a deal breaker, but it was something he believed to be correct, and he would follow my advice anyway. I really don't want to tell my parents that I stole and used drugs, but I don't believe I could ever look them in the eye again if they found out that I had stripped and prostituted myself. And ever since I returned, they have been absolutely kind to me. In summary, this turned out better than I could have imagined. Yes, I am aware that he thinks less of me. He was quite angry with me for keeping it from him for so long, but I had to accept that this was going to happen. He said that he would do his best to never bring it up again when he recovered from the first shock. I am very grateful that God placed him in my life because he is a genuinely amazing man. Edit. Wow, I'm getting a lot of very false information about my life through direct messages. Let me explain. I was not raised in a violent home. As a youngster or adolescent, I was never sexually assaulted or raped. I destroyed the hearts of my lovely family by my own conduct. I am really grateful that they have welcomed me back and have only shown me love and support. My idols are both of my parents. My mother was only attempting to keep me safe. She had no intention of being my accomplice. Second, to respond to this question here, I had to allow him to ask me those questions if I wanted to stay with him. He gave me every chance to stop it, and he even requested me to stop many times while we were conversing. Even though answering the questions was awkward, I felt that it strengthened our relationship since he genuinely participated in discussion with me and paid attention to what I had to say, even if he was stung by his own words because of his own anxieties. Furthermore, not all of my responses are as dramatic as some of you have assumed. The second update. To begin with, our relationship has been excellent. Yes, there have been problems, but nothing that I couldn't manage or that I didn't anticipate. His presence in my life continues to bring me joy. He had asked me to notify my parents when I last left off because he was worried they would think he was being too judgmental of a past drug problem. However, he said that he wouldn't consider that a deal breaker. It simply seemed like a decent idea to him. After giving it some more thought, I simply felt that I didn't want to have to share that aspect of my life with my parents. I firmly felt that they would have been there for me, but I simply did not want to experience the whole range of emotions that would accompany informing them. He was okay with it when I gave him the rundown, declared that he would never speak to them and that he respected my opinions. I made the independent decision to inform them that the wedding would be postponed. After our conversation, I informed them that he wanted to remain with me and that he only needed more time to reflect. This, in my opinion, was the best course of action since I didn't want him present and having to explain anything because I didn't want him to feel stuck if something had come up. When I informed them that they were plainly dissatisfied, they acknowledged that he had given me money to reimburse their deposits, but they insisted that they did not want it and that we should retain the money instead. That seemed to be the end of it. Was I ever in error? He joined us for supper on Thanksgiving. His family joined him for lunch. I was invited, but I was unable to go since I had to assist my mom in preparing supper here after not leaving work till late. We had supper around 5:30 after he arrived at my parents' place at approximately 4. There were my parents, 2 sets of grandparents, and a number of relatives. Dinner was a success. My 12-year-old cousin, who is many years younger than me, inquired when we were getting married as we were eating and everyone was having a great time. It was lengthy. He just sat there looking at me for direction in what felt like an awkward pause that would never end. Most likely next summer, he remarked. When my mother's mother heard this, she asked if she had the dates incorrect on her calendar, to which my mother promptly responded that there were scheduling difficulties. Clearly, no one had informed them that the date was erroneous. That ought to have been it. However, my grandmother refused to accept it and began to inquire about schedule difficulties, whether they were caused by the minister or the church. She was determined to resolve this. This continued for perhaps 30 minutes, and based on the expression on his face, I could tell he was tired of it. He appeared nearly extremely unhappy, but he never said. At around 8:30, my family finally begins to go, and once everyone has said their goodbyes, he and I return to the living room and settle down on the couch. He claims to be all right after I apologized repeatedly, but I can see he is not, yet he is beginning to relax. After saying goodbye to their parents, my parents return inside from the front porch. They sat down, and my dad apologized to us both, explaining that although our family means well, there are moments when we may be too controlling. My mom doesn't laugh, but the 3 of us do. My mother then chooses to pour a lot of fuel on a poor issue that was under control and about to finish. She claimed that she felt sorry for her mother because she believed that she was distressed since my mom's father, my grandpa, was ill and they were worried that he wouldn't survive to witness my wedding. It goes to hell right here. She claimed that delaying matters because of a drug addiction was foolish It hasn't been an issue for a number of years. I could see, feel, and tighten up physically as my lover just sat there. I had his hand in mine. My mom and dad got into a heated argument when my dad raised his voice. And I could tell they had discussed this after I informed them based on their conversation. It should come as no surprise. And I could see that my dad felt the same way. Despite his attempts to be kind and silence my mom, I simply couldn't stand it any longer. I was really sorry about Greg. In addition to being there for my grandparents, he now had to sit there for my parents, and he is being held responsible by everyone. He wasn't treated fairly. My parents needed to stop fighting and stop blaming Greg for anything, so I stood up and told them I wanted to talk to them. He signaled to me to halt by squeezing my hand. He shook his head as I glanced at him. No, I informed him that this was unfair to him and, in the end, unfair to them as well because they were placing the blame on him for the wrong reasons. This clearly caught their attention. I proceeded to inform them that, following my expulsion from the house, I had lost everything: my home, career, education, talents, and everything else. All I told them was that I had turned into an exotic dancer. I simply couldn't bring myself to inform them further. They're not stupid, though. My mother started crying and gasping right away. My dad attempted to calm my mom down as he sat there in shock. After a few minutes of being essentially hysterical, my mom apologized to Greg. She said that while knowing that he was a great man for remaining with me, she was unaware of it. I'm not really sure how I feel about her comment, but I believe she was ultimately coming from a good place. Most importantly, though, it did absolve him of responsibility. This Thanksgiving was much like any other, my dad said as he welcomed him into the family. I'm trying to be humorous. In order to visit Greg on Friday, I asked him if it would be okay if I spoke with my parents. We shared a goodnight kiss as I escorted him out. He informed me that I didn't have to tell them that he wasn't going to say anything when I told him how amazing I thought he was. I told them that although I knew he wouldn't, unless they learned the truth, things would never improve. I returned inside and spoke with my folks for the next few hours. It was obviously upsetting in a number of ways. I have never witnessed my dad blaming himself for his outbursts of tears. He said that, regardless of what I said or did, he damaged my life and that he never should have expelled me. I was unable to comfort him. My mother also made an effort, but to no avail. After we all went to bed, my mother called 911 in a panic, waking me up. My dad was experiencing pain in his chest. He was sent to a hospital that specializes in heart issues when the ambulance arrived and reported that he was experiencing a heart attack. I was more terrified than before since my dad looked terrible. Greg arrived to pick up my mom and me and drive us to the hospital after I phoned him. As they hurried him into surgery, they wouldn't let us return to see him. The doctor then informed us that the ambulance had probably saved his life by spotting what was going on, and that a surgeon was with him implanting stents and had essentially already used a plunger or something to remove a blood clot. They discovered. Our clergyman arrived within 30 minutes after we contacted him. Tomorrow is when my dad is supposed to return home. He claimed to feel wonderful and looked fantastic tonight. For my mom and myself, Greg has been a rock. My mom really told me that I should make sure to keep him when he went to bring us food, since my dad was the only man she knew to be any better. All I can say is that I'm glad my dad will be all right. Greg told me that life is never boring with me when he dropped me off at home tonight. We both chuckled. I have to make an effort to assist my dad understand that what he did was tough love, and that he cannot hold himself responsible for my bad decisions. After the first, second, or even 23rd time, he didn't just throw me out. For a few years, they made an effort to get in touch with me, but I refused. When I asked my minister about my dad's treatment, he said he would talk to him as his minister and, if my dad is amenable, suggest another therapist. With any luck, this will stop any further updates. I am making every effort to let Greg know how much he means to me, and that I will never betray his faith in me, since I know he is the love of my life.